Hello, everyone. As we gather here for the final panel of our Women's History Month series, Lift While Rising, I am filled with sense of humility and immersed excitement to guide today's conversation. My name is Shirin Alipana, and my path to this moment has been shaped by relentless pursuit of learning and a passion deeply rooted in making a meaningful difference and empowering women to find and amplify their voice in their careers and their personal lives as well. My journey began in Iran, where I was born and raised with 9 other siblings, 7 boys and 2 girls. You can imagine. A place where I experienced the sharp edges of inequality firsthand. But it was also where I started to understand the power of resilience, the strength found in adversity, and the importance of finding my voice. Over the years, this understanding transformed from my personal struggle into a powerful drive to push forward, and not just for myself, but for others who might find themselves on a similar path. As we get into today's conversation on leadership, innovation, resilience, growth, and empowerment, I'm deeply grateful to share this platform with our amazing panelists. Their stories and insights embody the incredible potential and strength of women in leadership roles across various sectors. So with that, I'd love to invite our panelists to take a moment to introduce themselves. So Sarah, let's begin with you.
We have 2 Sarahs.
You go.
Okay. Shirin, thank you so much for the invitation. A huge thank you to EXP. This is such a great month. I love being on stage with all of you and getting to hear your stories. And it's such an empowering month for women worldwide. So thank you for carrying this event and creating this space for us. My name is Sarah Hussain. I am the Global Head of Inclusion and Diversity at ResMed. I've been doing inclusion and diversity work for about 10 years, but my roots come from international development. I started off working in refugee camps, and then I worked in government, nonprofit for a while. And then about 10 years ago, I pivoted into the tech space, working on the people side. And it's been an amazing journey in terms of helping businesses be better, really thinking inclusively around inclusive design. So it's been great. I am a San Diego native and a North African by descent. Shirin, I don't have 9 siblings. I've only got 3. But I do have a big family. I've got 76 first cousins, and I love to travel and I love to dance.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So let's move on to the other Sarah, Sarah Adams.
Hi, well, thank you so much for the invitation. I echo all the thanks that Sarah said and excitement for this month. And what a great way to be wrapping it up here on this panel. So I am the Executive Director of Women's Empowerment International, a nonprofit based in San Diego. We are a fundraising and grant-making organization focused on economic empowerment programs for women facing poverty here in San Diego County and around the world. So I've been in the nonprofit sector for most of my career. It's definitely taken a varied course following different missions that have been near and dear to my heart. I worked in the environmental nonprofit sector for a while. I also worked in nonprofits that serve youth and foster care, focused on volunteer and community engagement, and also a nonprofit that serve military families, helping with financial stability for them. And so now currently getting to focus on women's empowerment and more along the lines of economic empowerment has really been just amazing for me to be here and to find the organization. So I'm a mom of 2 strong-willed, strong little daughters. I'm really excited also to be in this role and be able to teach them a lot about what it means to uplift other women in our community and around the world.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. RJ, how about you?
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and to be amongst such amazing women. So, thank you so much for having me. I'm a woman with many roles, many hats, although I don't have on one today. I have a lot of responsibilities, starting with my personal life. I am a mother of two adult children. I have four grandchildren that call me sweetie. And let me back up and say my children call me for money. So yeah, also, I'm a woman with passion, and I've known for quite a long time since I was a teenager that the journey that I'm on is the journey I wanted to be on. So using the vehicle as a professional speaker, podcaster, author, I get to travel the world to remind women that there's greatness inside of them and that they don't have to live where they're dying and they don't have to die where they're living. So I get to do that. And I love saying I get to do that. Pleasure, and it's an honor, just like it is to be here today.
Thank you, RJ. Jenny, how about you?
I love that. Thanks for having me. And I wanted to say last, but definitely not least, just because what we're going to be talking about today about like standing up for yourself and, you know, putting your best foot forward. And so I'm excited to share the stage with all these amazing women and love that we got to be at a Women's Week event together in San Diego and connect there. So my name is Jenny Harkleroad. I am the founder and CEO of Balanced You, a mental wellness training company. We work with a lot of realtors to help them program their mind for wellness and success. The reason we work with a lot of realtors is because I was a top producing realtor for 13 years before breaking my back in a hiking accident and got laid up for about 3 years and switched into coaching. I also am the executive managing director for eWomen Network San Diego, an organization that helps women to grow their 7-figure business. In addition, I'm the director of communications for 6 congregations of my church, putting on monthly church and community events. So I love to be involved. Like some of you ladies, my greatest claim to fame are my 4 amazing kids who are ages now 17 to 26. So now that they're mostly out, I have lots of time on my hands to do a lot of fun things in the world. And I love working with women, helping them succeed in so many different ways.
That is awesome. Oh my God. I can't wait to get this started. Great panelists here. Okay, so before we kick off, let's take a moment to reflect. Imagine just for 1 second that Oprah, alongside insightful Stedman Graham and the habit guru, James Clear, decided to redefine the leadership playbook. What would that look like? Their first rule: lead yourself to lead others. It's not just about acquiring knowledge or skills. It's about evolving into someone who inspires, someone you'd follow into challenge. And with that spirit of self-improvement and empowerment, let's get started. First one, we're going to dive into this conversation around self-leadership journey. And to set this stage, I'd love for each of you to share a short story where you were your own coach, your own cheerleader, or even the tough love friend. How did this journey of self-development and self-leadership and personal transformation impact your approach to the leading others? Did you adopt a new habit, a mindset, a lifestyle? So let's talk about that. Jenny, why don't we start with you?
Perfect. Thank you so much. So when I was thinking about this question, you know, I was a top producing realtor for 10 years before breaking my back in a hiking accident. And I was literally laid up for 3 years. I still remained a top producing realtor from bed, which is pretty crazy and a little hard to do, but I managed. But what happened in my life was there were a lot of things going on in my mind that were sabotaging me instead of supporting me. And I didn't realize this. And a lot of times I was blaming others for my unhappiness. like the other realtor in the transaction, or the lender who didn't get the loan done in time, or the buyers sending a crazy request for repairs over that was just outrageous. A lot of these things would frustrate me, and that was just in my real estate life. Of course, raising 4 kids and being involved in my community, there were a lot of things going on. And so what I discovered after literally being in bed for about 3 years was that I had to change myself. And wishing, hoping, wanting other people to do things different may never happen. And so if I was going to really change things about my life, I had to start with me. And the thing was, I didn't really know how to change myself because I had tried a lot of things that didn't really work for me, like saying positive affirmations or having a positive mental attitude. It was a good goal. I mean, it was the best I knew how to do, but it really wasn't changing anything for me. What really changed was when I started asking myself, is the story you're telling yourself even true? Is how you're feeling really the feeling, or is it just based on what you're thinking? And it's causing this whole scenario to play out in your head. And so I had to do a lot of mind work on myself in order to become the kind of person I wanted to be. For example, I always was a good leader, but I was a little bit unsure of myself. I acted like I wasn't, but I was. So I had to do the work on the inside so that the act I was putting on, they say fake it till you make it, I wasn't making it. I had to do the work on the inside so that I was making it, so that I could be this leader that others wanted to follow, and that I could lead them with some of the strengths I already had. Like, I'm very decisive, but I needed that confidence to come in there with it. So working on the mind for me, working on my mind was what changed, not only helped me heal my body, but helped me to be the best person that I could be.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. Any other thoughts on this topic?
I'll share. You know, it's true what they say. You can't give what you don't have. And so you can't cheer for anyone else if you can't cheer for yourself. And as a woman growing up, always rooting for people, supporting my family, being that woman, that young girl that everybody came to, I found that not too many people were cheering for me while I was cheering for everyone else. And so I found a solution. Cheer for yourself, RJ. Because if you can't cheer for yourself, you really can't cheer for anyone else. Growing up, I grew up with a rare eye disease, which I still have, by the way. Throughout life, I have had many challenges. The one that comes to mind is the one that happened recently, where I was involved in a horrific accident that left me with a brain injury. I laid in bed, couldn't even remember who I was, but I had to remember to cheer for myself. And I'm only here today because I've learned to cheer for myself. And I just want to encourage anyone who's watching or listening. You have what you need in order to succeed, but you gotta believe it first. And you must be your own cheerleader.
I think it's important also to remember, because I think, Jenny, RJ, you bring up a great point about having to champion yourself and be there for yourself. But there is the conversation around who's your champions, who are your cheerleaders, who's kind of carrying there, because it's hard to do these alone. I personally, Shadeen, to your question, I struggled with mental health and boundary setting, and my turning point in leadership was learning how to say no and learning how to say not now, and here's what I can do, because it affected my mental health. But I also needed people on the outside to say, Sarah, like, this is not sustainable, and be there and hold me accountable. So I think it's really important that you kind of have people that hold you accountable, that are cheering you. They use the analogy of having your own board of directors. I think it's also important to lean on your community to make sure that they're also there for you. So building those relationships is also really important to give you that strength for that mind cheerleader.
That's amazing. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, you gotta. It's you got to learn how to say no and set the boundaries, and then start cheering for yourself. And then, to your point, have advocates and cheerleaders around you too to kind of push you up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you need to. For me, the moment was thinking about being my authentic self, and not this idea of, oh, leave it at the door, and then you're a different person when you walk through the door.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember having a really bad day and coming into work and then trying to keep it together, but it just wasn't working and things were frustrating me. And then I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to own it. I'm having a bad day. Here's why. I totally overreacted about this thing. I did not act in a way that I should have, but like, here's what's really going on. And then I can start creating a safe space where other people can bring their whole selves through the door, and they don't feel like, oh, I have to leave a part of me on the other side of that door, and then I'm just going to give half of myself today, or, you know, this part of myself today. But it's really, how much more can we be if we're really being our whole true selves? And then how much more can the people around us be if they get to be their whole true selves?
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. That conversation brings me back to the next point about our pivotal moments. And this is near and dear to my heart. A pivotal moment in our personal or professional lives that defined us, made us who we are today. I will share a quick story about that moment for me. So my story, obviously, is when I was in high school in Iran. And one day, I put white socks on and showed up at school as I normally did. Our principal was at the door, as always, checking us from head to toe to ensure we are dressed appropriately for school. So when we saw my white socks, she said, oh no, you need to go home and change that. Can you take a guess why? Well, here's what she said. I was told white socks attract boys. Two things immediately came to my mind. Number one was why boys would find white color attractive. Like, then I have to change the way I show up to help boys control themselves. Wow. So that was my like awakening moment, right? The moment that started this big chain of thoughts and reactions of my life. Yeah, I know it's a little funny, right? So kind of, I'm putting it out there to you all. Can you recall a pivotal moment in your career or personal lives that helped define your leadership style? How did this moment shape your philosophy on leadership and empowering others? So with that, let's start with Sarah, and we'll continue.
Yeah. I'll share the personal and professional. My turning point in my life was my divorce. It kind of blindsided me, happened very fast, and left me in another country unemployed. So I really had to look in the mirror and be like, how did I get here? What happened? So I had to unpack 30 years, and it was like an entire identity. I had to look at myself and say, who are you? What happened? What is your identity now, not connected to this person? I'd been with my partner for a very long time, and it was very hard. In fact, my therapist at the time asked me to go look at myself for 3 minutes in the mirror, and I couldn't do it. I didn't even recognize the person in front of me. So it took a couple of years for me to figure out, well, who is Sarah? Who is she by herself? What does she stand for? What are her values? And she was there. She had been there, but when you get in situations, sometimes you lose yourself. Mm-hmm. And I swore coming out of all the self-work I did that I'll never lose myself again. Right now, I know myself beyond measure. And that has translated to leadership because I think when, life does throw you against a wall, you learn how to develop empathy for others. And so I think my personal transformational moment made me more empathetic, made me more kind, made me more patient. It changed me as a person. So I think that has made me be a different leader. And in fact, that same year, I had a professional turning moment. And it was really, again, going back to the thing about self-value and self-worth, where I came back from a one-on-one and I'm like, what am I doing here? Is this what I'm worth? I'm worth more. So I went through this year of complete eruptions in my life that helped me find my value, my worth, and my voice, and develop me into the person I am today, into the leader I am today. So my biggest advice is lean into things that make you uncomfortable and those things that do hit us hard, And I know Jenny and RJ, your stories are just so moving. You only rise from them. You only lift, right? So I will say that now I look back, I'm like, that was the best thing because it did make me who I am today. And I like who I am today better than I like the person from 10 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you. Sarah Adams, how about you?
Yeah, that I feel like kind of like with Sarah, what you were saying, it's several moments, right, that come together for things. In my professional side, the moment was a moment of humility. I think kind of growing up in my professional career, I was always really encouraged, like, oh, you're doing a great job as a supervisor, you're doing a great job as a leader, and all of, those things, which was making me feel really great about what I was doing. And then I hit the moment where it wasn't working. I was with a new team. Like there had been a big team switch over, and it was a very different team dynamic. And I was hit with this moment of humility where everyone was giving me the message that you are not doing a good job right now. You're not supporting us the way we need to be supported. And kind of the ironic thing was I had heard someone on a panel maybe a month before talk about that moment for her. And I thought, oh, wow, that's deep. And I've never had that sort of thing, though. Lucky me. But then it hit me. And I was like, oh, I've got to be more self-aware and more aware of where the dynamics really are in the team and how everyone's feeling. And for the team, what they needed at that time was not for me to be a buffer from stress like I was trying to do and kind of shield them from what was happening with other dynamics in the organization. But they wanted more transparency. They wanted more authenticity, and they wanted me to sometimes get out of the way, right? Which I needed to do, and just let them have space to take risks, create an environment where it really was safe to take risks, to try new things, to learn and grow along the way. And being able to shift that and have a totally different structure in our meetings, in our team planning sessions, and just get out of the way, right? And give people space to do that themselves was a big shift for me and so needed. And now I think I approach it very, very differently. And I'm still learning, and still trying to figure out what do these dynamics look like? What do people need? What are they looking for? And recognizing that, it's not about me trying to empower somebody else, but they have that in themselves. So how do they have space to tap into their own empowerment? How do they have space to recognize that and learn and grow themselves, and just know that I'm there supporting and cheering them on and providing them?
That's amazing, Sarah. Thank you for sharing. I think it's you hit a very very strong point here, right? Like we all want to do the right thing. We all are there to contribute, to make our company successful, to achieve our goals. But then sometimes empowering others, to giving them a space to own and to feel accountable, feel responsible, it just gives them a different level of power that it just drives them to the next level, right? Jenny and RJ, how about you? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, something came to mind that just happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I was at an event with women, and I saw this lady, and I said, "Hey, rock star," and she looked at me, and she's like, "Yeah, don't I wish?" And I said, "No, you are," and she's like, "Yeah, not really," and I'm like, "No, really, you are," And just for that moment, I think she kind of was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm not a musician, but I think it's really important for us to see the potential in people and maybe call it out, because sometimes it's hard to see in yourself what's there. I think it's why we love like personality quizzes. Like we don't know ourselves as much as somebody who sees us from the outside sometimes can recognize some of our strengths. So I think as we're in the business, so to speak, of empowering women to help women step into who they are and who they can be, and helping them know that there's no limit unless they think there is. So if they stop thinking there is, what could they do different? and really encouraging them to take that next step, I think is super powerful.
Absolutely. I just totally agree, Jenny. And the one way to do that is to know for yourself who you are, to be the reflection of what women really long for and what they need to see. And to answer the question for me, I'll make it short, because one thing about me, Jenny said this earlier about fake it till you make it. I can't fake it. And listen, I just got to be authentically true and tell you when I don't know. And I had to come to that as a result of living with a brain injury, not being able to remember. And when you asked what's a pivotal moment, I'm like, I don't know, but I'll tell you a story that relates. And perhaps it wasn't the pivotal moment, but it was a moment that helped define me in my leadership skill. When I was young, my mom told me I was going to camp. Now, I'm a daddy's girl. And so my first question was, okay, is my daddy going? And she says, no, but you are. And I was like, oh, man. So I went to the camp. I was a really shy person, didn't want to go anywhere without my dad. But I'm at this camp and we had a homework assignment to write about our personality. I was the only one who did the assignment. And the teacher had me come up and read it. And as I read it, the kids started laughing. They especially laughed at the part where I said I cry easily. So they made it their business on the way home to make me cry.
Oh, wow.
And I let them know, you can make me cry, but I had the courage to stand up and do something that you didn't have the courage to do. And for me, that's a leader, someone who will courageously stand up boldly and declare who they are without apologizing. And so they realized they couldn't get me to cry because I had the trophy in hand and I didn't care what they had to say about it. That was a moment for me.
Great story.
To realize I have to know who I am in order to help other women, and particularly know who they are. Because you can't fake it. They see it and smell it a mile away.
So true.
That's a great story. Yeah, thank you for sharing, RJ. Very touching, and I think some of us might have experienced similar situations. But standing up for yourself and just being true to who you are. That's one of the way to show leadership and then grow out of that situation, right? All right, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and talk about my favorite topic. For those who know me, everybody knows, like, Shireen is everywhere. I love networking and I love going to different events, and that's just like my strength, my superpower, right? And so we all know the importance of intentional networking and building impactful connections. Do you have a strategy or tip around doing that, right? Intentional networking and how we can create these meaningful relationships. And I'm going to throw this out there. Whoever feels strongly about this, I would love for you to take it and share one quick tip with everybody.
I'll go. I had this example just happen to me today. So I was networking and met a gal who's looking for a job. I was on a sales call today with a company I had met at another networking group and called to follow up. And after I finished pitching what I wanted to sell them, I said, do you mind if I ask you something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about? And she said, sure. And I said, I just met a gal at a networking event who's looking for a job. Are you guys hiring? Because it sounds like what you do and what she does is a perfect match. And so it just showed me, like, I don't even know really any of these people very well, except I met them once at a networking event. And I was willing to interrupt my sales presentation to ask for this gal if maybe there was a fit for her. And it just shows me the power of, like, just meeting someone, just connecting. Like, you know, why was I willing to do that? Because I feel like we can all lift as we climb, right? And when we find opportunities that we're like, oh, this could match for that person that I just met. It's so powerful to do that. And I feel like there's an abundance for everyone. So when we can stay in that mindset of, like, even if we do something similar, there's plenty of business for us all. And so if you hear of an opportunity for someone, make sure to connect them to the other person. And I feel like we learn about people and we form these bonds when we're networking. So I love to get out there and meet people just like you, Shirin.
Yeah, it's all about building the community, right? Where you can connect. And yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
We're actually created for connection, and we need each other to survive. And Jenny, to do that, says it's not about me. And I believe when we network, it really isn't about us. And one tip is seek to understand and not be understood. Seek to learn about someone else and what they're doing instead of telling somebody about what you're doing and how important you are. And Jenny, you did that today, and you've changed someone's world, whether you realize it or not, by just saying, let me connect one of these people together. And so as we do lift, as we lift, as we rise, we help other people rise as well. And so I love what you shared, Jenny, and thank you. I can't wait to hear from the Sarahs.
Sarah. That's great. I will say I love networking. I think this is why we all know each other and we're on this panel. But I think it's really important. The biggest tip to give people is to have fun with it and take off the pressure. I hear from a lot of people that they're nervous about networking. There's a lot of sessions teaching people how to network. I say take the pressure off, be yourself. Maybe just say if I meet one person, that's great. Like don't put too much pressure on yourself. And I always find sometimes even I'm tired at the end of the day. I'm like, you know what, just go and have 2 or 3 good conversations and I leave fueled. So my biggest tip is like not to put pressure on yourself and try to have fun with it. And then I always suggest connect with people on LinkedIn right then and there, because to Jenny's point, you never know. And I have found this repeatedly. Connections, things come up later to bring people together, but find a way to be like, it's great meeting you. Love to stay connected. Share business cards, connect on LinkedIn, and make sure you do that within a few days. A popular tip is sometimes to write like, oh, I met Jenny at this event, and remind yourself, because if you're meeting a lot of people, but they're just little tips to kind of remind you the value of the people you're interacting with.
I love it because you forget, right? A few days later, you might forget where you actually made that connection. So that's a great thing to have a note for yourself.
Yeah, I echo everything that has been said. And I think that need right now for connections, that desire for real, true connections is so present. And I feel like that's a theme that keeps coming up, especially when I'm at these networking events, that I keep hearing people talk about, and just be so energized by the true connections that can be formed. I think for me, something that shifted when I realized I could go into these and just kind of, to Sarah's point, take off the pressure. Like I had sort of what was my intention for being there, but then let go of it, be open to whatever else was really going to present itself while I was there, because it's kind of like when you're shopping, right? The harder you look for something, the harder it is to find it. And so it's like, just go in and be open to who you're going to meet. And maybe don't always talk about business. Like, what do you do? The first thing, where do you work? Ease into that, right? Maybe share some personal stuff about you, so the other person shares something about themselves too. And you have a deeper connection than just the like, what do you do? Where do you work? Can you be of use to me? But it's more, it's a more genuine connection. And you remember those conversations after, about who did I talk to there? What was our conversation about? And it makes it easier to follow up afterwards when you want to continue that conversation and the other person wants to continue that conversation too.
I love what you shared, Sarah. Like, it's all about building that trust too, right? Like when you meet somebody, how you really build that genuine connection, that is not all about like, what's in it for me, but it's like how we can come together and how we can really help each other, or even like grow this network and expand this network beyond just us, the two of us, right? So sometimes like I know these networking and connections are for, hey, I'm in search of new career, or I'm looking for something different. But also there's a big component of that where people are looking for mentors, right? Because they want role models. They want to be able to be paired up and connected with people who are successful, who they look up to, so they can actually achieve their own goals. So the mentorship, as we all know, profoundly impact our careers. kind of switching gears into the mentorship, how do you approach mentorship? And is there a story that any of you who can share that you were mentored along the way, long time ago, that helped you achieve your goals, or you helped somebody through mentorship to help them achieve their goals, and how did that work? So, RJ, you want to take that first?
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. And I want to go back to something Sarah shared earlier when we were talking about being our own cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
Mentorship is so important because we cannot do this thing alone. We really do need each other to encourage, to lift, to remind, to hold accountable. So I just want to go back to that really quickly and say, Sarah, you're absolutely right, spot on. We do need other people to hold us accountable. And mentorship, it does just that. You know, I love the way John C. Maxwell said, the greatest gift we can give to anyone is to help them see ahead of the game and then get to their destination. And Oprah came right behind it and said, to help them see the hope inside. And I believe that's what mentorship is helping people see beyond what they see and to see their greatness, to see that they matter and that they have purpose. Not to say, hey, be like me. No, but to be your best self. And so a quick story on that is, first and foremost, God, he saw greatness inside of me before I was even born. And then he gifted me with great parents who were not just leaders, not just models, but they were mentors to me. They believed in me. They saw something that I didn't see in myself. And they sent me to a school that I didn't want to go to, where my 9th grade teacher, Sister Marge, really saw potential in me. And because she did, she nurtured that as a mentor. She showed me what mentorship really looked like. And I promise you, I say, God created me. William and Rhoda Jackson conceived me. Sister Marge saw potential in me. And that's why I am who I am today, because of what they saw inside of me. Fast forwarding, as an adult, I decided I wanted a mentor. And so I saw this woman who was a superintendent of a school, and I did the max. I created this special gift. I sent her flowers with this letter to say, would you please be my mentor? And she called me up and she said, thank you. Everything was so lovely, but no. Now, in an instant, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. She doesn't like me. You know how all these thoughts go through your mind that make you think that you don't matter? Well, It seemed like hours, but it was only seconds before she said, because I really want to be your friend and I will mentor you along the way. Mm-hmm. Why? Because she saw something in me that I still didn't see in myself. You see, I saw her up here and me down here. And sometimes when we have mentors, that's what we see. But she saw me up here and she wanted to be my friend. Mentorship, it's about encouraging. It's about lifting while we climb. It's about accountability. It's about empathy. And if I had not had the people in my life to mentor me, I wouldn't even be here today. And I'm so grateful for them.
Thank you for sharing, RJ.
My pleasure.
I'll go next. RJ, you're a tough act to follow. I'll say that. But so I have a different take with mentorship. There are different kinds of mentors we can have. I think it's important for the audience to understand what kind of mentor do I need and why, right? Always asking yourself, do I need a sponsor? Do I need someone to champion me? Do I need someone to open doors for me, introduce me, or do I need that guidance? So it's really important to kind of understand why you need a mentor. What are the goals you want to accomplish in a mentorship? I will say, to answer your question, Shanine, I have two, and I have one male and one female. Now, maybe you've all seen the data. Mentorship, when people have mentors, they're more likely to stay. They're more likely to get promoted. And the data is pretty significant. It's over 30%, especially for women. But I have gotten different feedback from both of my mentors that have propelled me in different ways. The best advice I got from one of my mentors was, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness later. Because he thought I was being a little too nice and too guarded and too careful. And he's like, you know what? You need to just do this. You need to step in and exhibit that leadership, like make decisions. And he helped me kind of find that vibe that I needed that I was a little afraid to do. He helped me cross over into that. My other mentor was more about giving me articles and books and helping me navigate the company I was at. She was really good at connecting me, helped me vie for promotion, whereas one was more about confidence building and skill set building. So again, understanding what you need is really important where you're at professionally. If you need someone to champion for you internally for that next promotion or a lateral move, that's where you might need a networker, for example. So I think I'm glad, Shadeen, you're asking this question because I think everyone should have a mentor of some sort.
Absolutely. And then there's, to your point, Sarah, like there's a big difference between a mentor and sponsor and advocate, right? The understanding the difference between them. It's very crucial into our career progression as we navigate this space. Jenny, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this in terms of real estate, since I think most of the audience watching might be in the real estate industry, and definitely mentorship is a little bit different in the corporate world than in the entrepreneurial world. A lot of times in the entrepreneurial world, we hire a coach and they, you know, quote unquote, mentor us, but it's for a fee, right? And so sometimes those coaching opportunities go beyond when that coaching session ends and they become more of a friendship and a mentorship. One thing I was thinking of though, for when I was in real estate, was I had a team, and as the team lead, I was the mentor, so to speak, of the newer agents on my team. And it ended up that when I decided to go into coaching and leave real estate, which was a really hard decision because I was very successful in real estate, but I really wanted to follow my heart into coaching, one of my mentees purchased my real estate company. So I had been able to work with her and train her to a level that she was ready to take over. And so I think that there's so much opportunity out there for us on both ends to look to people that we want to be like and that will potentially help us get there. And then also we want to look for people that we can help get to where we know they can become. And so I just love the opportunities out there. They're all around us. At eWomen Network, we have a program for emerging leaders that are age 21 to 29, where we pay for some opportunities for them. We fundraise and give them some additional opportunities to be around business leaders that can really help them take their business to the next level, as well as mentorship with our local chapter members who have a whole set of skills that they want to learn to grow their business. So I love how we can be a hand up to each other, and instead of just, you know, thinking in a way that you got to figure it out on your own. No, come here, let me help you. I'll show you the way.
Yeah, we don't have to make the same mistakes, right? That everybody else is doing. So we can learn from experiences, and we can help each other navigate this a little easier as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Sarah, any thoughts on that from your end?
Yeah, gosh, it is so important, right? And I think to everyone's point, it comes in so many different forms and you can find it in so many different places. So really think outside the box. Like, you may already have mentors that you don't even consider them mentors by whatever kind of notion you have of what a mentor should be, but they're the person that you call when you need some quick advice, or you need to kind of vent about what's going on and, you know, with your job, and like, you just need to talk it out, right? And they could be a mentor to you. You might have a peer group that you meet up for coffee, and you chat about all the different things, but that supports you in all the roles that you have, right? Professional, personal, and all the things. There is the person that I can call if I need resume advice, you know, that's a mentor, but she's also a friend, you know, and there's the person I can call if I just need somebody to be like, no, you can do it, get back in there, you know, stop thinking about it. There's the person that I can put down as a job reference anytime I apply, and I know she thinks more highly of my skills than I do, right? So she's my sponsor. And there's all these different people that you may have around you already. And something that I think was important for me to recognize that I also have something to give, that I also can be a mentor back to these same people or to different people and in different ways. On the personal side, it was really a defining kind of moment for me when I realized I could be a mentorship in, part of my personal stuff is doing karate, and I was teaching women self-defense for a while, and I was so doubtful of my ability to step into that role, but I had to mentor a woman in our karate group who gave me and my co-teacher the training to do it, and we jumped in there and we took a huge risk, but I really found my own voice within that group by doing that. And I found that I can support other women who are looking to build confidence, who are looking to better understand their bodies and how their bodies move, and move with confidence in their bodies, and move with confidence to set boundaries and to do all the things, right? And so much of finding their own empowerment and tapping into that. But recognizing that I had something to give and something to share was really important for me. And I think that also changed, me in other ways too.
Wow, that's amazing. And what I love about what you just said is mentors don't always wear a badge, right? So you don't have to have a mentor badge to actually help others and mentor. Sometimes they are very subtle, and we have them all around us. And it's that's the beauty of having these board of directors there, just like you mentioned too. These are all different kinds of mentors and different aspects of life that can help us, or we can help. We can be somebody's board of director. All right. Well, in the spirit of our Lift While Rising theme, it is crucial to talk about like some of the systematic barriers, such as gender pay gap, succession planning obstacles, and limited access to promotions. Let's take the gender pay gap for an example. Since the global pandemic, women have seen a setback in gender pay gap, right? The Economic Policy Institute stated women on average were paid 20.3% less than men in 2019. And by 2022, the gap widened to 22.2%. And there is also a bigger gap in women category between white women and women of color. So Sarah, what are some of the actionable steps and strategies we can take as a unified community, right, to implement, to confront these disparities and to create more of an equitable workplace?
Yeah, I'm really glad we're talking about this. There are a lot of pay equity movements, workforce equity movements right now. So just to make sure for your question, when we talk about community, I'm going to talk about in-house. I think it's important for employees to actually ask questions, ask your manager. If you have affinity groups, if you belong, to an affinity group, ask, like, what are we doing? Do we have an analysis? So companies today are working and running their own pay equity analyses to understand where, if and where there are these disparities. So I think it's very important to be part of that and understand your business, and then make those remediations as needed. And be very transparent about the process. Transparency is really important. I've watched this now a few times happen, and employees will appreciate it. Things happen behind the scenes, things leak. So just be very open that you're on this journey, that we're doing the best we can. So I think that's really important, is to kind of be straight up and honest. But as an employee, ask for it. Ask your manager. Statistically, women ask for less. They devalue themselves when they're interviewing, when they're negotiating their salaries. My biggest recommendation is to always value yourself higher, ask for more, because we need to start leveling that playing field. And that's really important. If the data speaks for itself, so understanding your market value and asking for that. The only way we're going to start closing the gap as well, there's a twofold responsibility. We need to also articulate and fight for our worth. The second thing I want to also address to your question is the question of bias. This is something I navigate in the inclusion and diversity space a lot. And so people have biases, like you mentioned, women of color. So a Black woman is paid about 60 cents to the dollar, and a white woman's paid 80 cents to the dollar that a man makes, right?
Mhm.
these biases are real. And so all I can say is like, make sure you're investing time to have unconscious bias trainings, that your sourcers and recruiters are thinking through bias, that your hiring managers are being trained on bias, and that we have equitable and fair negotiations with everybody at the same level.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, those, especially unconscious biases, right? We are not aware of them, especially from early stages of even like recruiting and offers and onboarding and all of that. So it's all, every step of the way, it's very crucial to hopefully narrow that gap and get to a point that everybody is really treated equally.
Yeah. And the bias towards ourselves is there.
Yes.
Like I said, don't sell yourself short.
Exactly.
Don't just settle. Right. So
we are generally not good at self-advocating. So that's one of the things that we have our internal barriers to work on, right? To get to that point. Any other thoughts from anybody else?
I'm thinking of it in terms of real estate. You know, when you go to list a home, the commission is negotiable. So I'm not sure what the numbers are between men and women. Do men realtors ask for a full commission more than women realtors do? That would be interesting. I don't know if that statistic is out there. But I would say, like, you know, my husband has this saying that I love. It's not what you deserve, it's what you negotiate. So number one, there's that. But also, you do deserve a full commission. You do deserve to make the same pay as someone else. So you got to ask for it, and you got to put yourself on the line. And if you think, well, I'd rather have less and get the job, get the transaction, that's really just a limiting belief. Right. So if you're going to do the full amount of effort, you're going to buy the ads, you're going to work the open houses, you're going to do all the things, you're going to negotiate for your client, they should pay you the full commission. And so don't discount yourself before you even start all the work. Be bold and ask for what you deserve, because you do deserve it.
Yeah. The believing in yourself is the first step, right? You got to believe that you deserve it, and you got to believe that you're worth it and you bring value, and it helps you negotiate. Any other feedback, comment?
Just summing up what they said, you have not because you ask not. So ask for what you want and know your worth. So Sarah, you don't have to follow me. We can walk along side by side, and I can learn a lot from you when it comes to this. I'm an entrepreneur, have been all my life. So I don't know what that's like. So I'd love to learn more from you at a later time.
See, I love this community already. We have
networking,
intentional networking.
Absolutely. I just want to say yes to everything that everyone has said, right? Like that, it's so true. And don't devalue yourself, and just ask for it. You know, if a pay range is listed, ask for the top. Why not? Somebody else will if you don't, right? And why aren't you worth it? You've worked hard, you earned that job, you know? But it surprises me, and it shouldn't surprise me, but it still does, how many people weren't planning on negotiating. And, you know, I find myself, if I am the interviewer, you know, if I'm offering somebody a job, it's like, no, like this company will give you more, ask for more, you know, kind of, because you've got to be honest as the employer, right, about what is the pay range, what are we really willing to pay. Don't make it like, well, for this person we might offer this, but for this person we might offer this, depending on what they ask for. But it has to be equitable. And so how can we internally really advocate for that? And how can we be champions to our friends who are applying for jobs to make sure they know that they should negotiate up? I love that we're seeing more companies actually post pay ranges. So there is more transparency there. I think that's been a problem for a long time, right? Not having that. And so people don't know where to start. And having these hidden starting places has ended up with, I think, a lot of the inequity that we see. But, you know, even with that, there's still more work to do, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to double click on that, Sarah, because you're right. So now California, for example, has passed a law, and then other states might follow suit, where job descriptions have to have pay ranges. But the keyword is range, and companies are leaving that wide, and they're going to have reasons and talk tracks behind where they're going to pay you. So if you want to, I'm all for asking for the high end, but if they're going to give you the low end, really understand where you fit in that range and why. And so this is where I think it's that gray area is going to be something people are really going to have to understand and negotiate for.
Mm-hmm. And it takes boldness to ask those questions, but if you're not advocating for yourself in those situations, who is? And so you have to, like everyone's been saying, like RJ was saying, be your own cheerleader. And Sarah, to that point, really, asking, well, okay, so understanding, why did I get to this point? You know, why is this the offer then? And then, so how do I get to the other? What do I need to do? What's the path toward that? So you know kind of what's going on, I guess, and how to get there.
And that's where I think mentors would come into play to help kind of prepare you for that step, right? Okay, my last question is $1 million question. And I will answer it first, and then I'm going to open it up for a quick answer from all of you. Look into the future. What is one change that you would want to see in this landscape, right? Let's say over next 10 years. For me is I love the reports that I read from McKinsey & Co. They do pretty comprehensive studies, right? Every year or every other year on gender parity, equality, DEI. I would love to see a report where the two lines are aligned and you don't see any gap in between, right? That is my ideal future. That's my ideal space to be. That's the world that I want to live in. That's my $1 million landscape to be in. What is yours?
I think mine is the same. And I would say that the best way that we can get there is to spend time on growing ourselves, becoming the best that we can be, so that we're more confident and more bold and more outgoing and see our value. And so we ask for what we deserve. So I would say spend time and spend money on developing yourself. And it'll change the landscape, not just for you, but it'll make an impact on all the women around you. When they see what you're doing and how you're succeeding, they know they can do it too. So that's one way we can all lift as we climb.
Yeah, I think kind of to your example, right, all in one line, to not see so much written about people as, oh, she as a female leader has these qualities, you know, and he as a male leader has these qualities, or really using those types of descriptions to describe somebody as a leader, to it just talking about each person as a leader and with their own leadership style that is not connected to gender. Or maybe it is, and there's strength there too, but I think there still is this double standard also in critiques and criticism that have this other standard for women as leaders. I think I've seen a lot more stories written, right, very critically about a woman who does the same thing as a man might do, but it's like, oh, it's okay, he'll figure it out. Versus like, it's failing, she's bringing the entire company down. So I think, you know, in my ideal world, right, that's gone. And, you know, we've gotten past that point. So how do we get there? You know, I think all the stuff we've been talking about, just keep working on it, keep working on space for everyone to have a voice in our companies, in our communities, to be lifting up those voices, to be making sure that we find ways to be champions for others, to be sponsors for others without people asking us to be, just to be the one who's always talking about somebody else, about, you know, their good qualities and what they've accomplished, and seeing how can we make these connections? How can we build this community that we're striving for?
So thank you for sharing. RJ?
On that same note, be the change you want to see. Be the change. Like, if we would all honor other people for who they are without putting a price tag on them for what we feel they're worth, I think this would be a better world. So I'm right there with you, Sarah. Advocate for other people.
Sarah, the other Sarah.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up with just one word. For me, the world I want to see is free of assumptions and bias, and that's essentially the root of a lot of the challenges we see today. So that would be mine. I'd love to see no assumptions and biases projected on all people, whether you're neurodiverse, disabilities, everything.
I love it. Love it. Jenny.
Yeah, so I think I might have already shared, but to Sarah's point, what she was just talking about is so many times we don't even realize our own bias. And so just to ask ourselves a few questions. And, maybe if we find that there's someone or something we're biased against, maybe we can spend a little more time and find the goodness in that belief or that person. It doesn't mean we have to agree with it, but just to be open and curious to other people and how they live and what they think. And it's okay to not share how you think it is. It's okay to just listen and honor what other people believe. And so I think that's a great way to take the next step. And I think it's kind of happening, as I watch my kids growing up in school today versus when I was in school today. I would say there's less biases now than there was when I was in high school. And we're just more open to people and different ways of living. And that doesn't mean we, again, have to agree. It just means that we love and respect all people and we want to help all people succeed.
I love that. Thank you. And sharing some positive notes about school today. So that warms my heart because my little one at school. So it's clear that this journey to leadership is both personal, it's collective, and it requires self-awareness. It requires innovation and strong support network, right? So thank you all so much for sharing insights, for sharing stories, being vulnerable, and also leaving us with all the tips and nuggets that can help us, and not only in our career or personal life, but also help us as a community. So together, let's continue to break barriers, build bridges, and lift while we rise. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Let's carry these conversations forward and make a tangible difference in our communities and workplaces.